Hi, I'm Chaz Kangas from Go 95.3, and we are here on the most felicitous of occasions. I am joined by the Juno Award-winning favorite son of Canada. You may know him as a narrator on Hip Hop Evolution, which airs on HBO Canada and Netflix here in North America. The rest of it, if you're nasty. Ladies and gentlemen, my guest who's in town performing at 7th Street Entry tonight, Shad. Shad, how you doing?
I'm great, man. Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks for coming through. So right off the bat, being this is Minnesota, and we like to do little gifts, little nice hospitality, and Minneapolis basically being a suburb of Canada. One of our finest exports were Zubaz. So want to hook you up with Minnesota Wild bandana, Vikings sandals, and then Minnesota Twins luchador Zubaz mask.
Okay, well, two things. One, I didn't know that these came out of Minneapolis or Minnesota, and number two, we say it's Zubaz. Is that what it is? Zubaz?
Yeah, it's Zubaz.
Yeah, no, we thought it was Zubaz, and I also thought they weren't around no more.
Oh no, they came back. They had a really major resurgence doing like the super nostalgia run of like the early 2010s. So yeah, now it's like you go to events, they're out there. Places will have a Zubaz night. So yeah, but I wonder if Zubaz might be if you pronounce it Zed. For us it's Z. So just kind of and being that there's two Zeds in there. I know because we don't take the name of the Lord Zed in vain. So one of those sort of things. So cool, man. I hope you dig them. Yeah, and hey, thanks for coming out. Cool. So this tour now, I'm noticing now the sweet Project Bloat hoodie. So at what point along the tour are you now? Like, were you in the West Coast before coming here? Or?
So we started in Toronto. We're making our way west. So we were in Grand Rapids, Chicago, here, and then we go up to Canada, do the rest, go west. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. And tonight you're rocking at 7th Street Entry. And have you rocked at 7th Street for Stab before?
Yeah. My only club show I've ever done in Minneapolis was there. I want to say like 4 or 5 years ago.
So like Flying Colors era?
Exactly, yeah, for the Flying Colors tour. So yeah, that's the only place I've ever played here, aside from Soundset a few years ago too.
Sweet. Speaking of which, so the new record, A Short Story About War, your first one in 5 years since Flying Colors, for a hip-hop record since then, yep. So in the meantime, you've been really busy with a lot, and then to have this record now be a concept record, was it very different getting into that mindset for your turn, and then to have a sort of concept record as opposed to the last couple go-rounds?
Yeah, different. Yeah, definitely different. In the sense that I feel like up to Flying Colors, all of my albums were sort of, how can I put it? Sort of like one story, really just kind of like me, Shad, and this is the story of me figuring stuff out and what I'm thinking about and, my life and things like that. And I feel like this is kind of moving out of that story and into a different story. It's a concept. It's like looking outwards more than it's looking inwards and sort of, creating this world that parallels our own. And trying to understand some things through that metaphor. So yeah, totally different feeling. Yeah.
So when putting together something like this being a concept record and, and telling that story and having the different parts of the Fool and, and the narrative weaving in and out of it, do you find that when recording it, it's a lot more you have the idea for the song and then you fit it into the narrative, or does the narrative then create the idea for the songwriting?
Mm-hmm. So it all started for me with this story, with this narrative. Somewhere between a narrative and an image, actually, really. I just kind of saw this desert world. I saw this war. I saw these different characters. And it's less of a narrative in the sense that, I don't know if there's a conclusion. It's just sort of like a scenario, I guess we could say. And so the creative challenge became, okay, well, I want to describe what I'm seeing, in my imagination. But I don't want to make, just a narrative thing. I kind of want to make the metaphors and the sort of... parallels very clear, So yeah, I wanted it to weave between our world and this imaginary world. And so some of the songs were very much like, okay, I want to describe this about what I was seeing. And other songs are like, I kind of want to describe this about our world and our interior world, but also weave in some of the images and stuff from this story. So yeah, a bit of both.
Gotcha. And so that then lends itself to make it easy to weave that into a live show when you have stuff from your previous records. So
yeah, totally. Yeah, I was thinking about that, and I was also just thinking about somebody listening and engaging with the imagination is something I wanted to do with this album, but also it's kind of a lot to ask people to just go into another world and not give them. Is the thing I realize is different about hip hop, than writing. Like in writing, you don't explain your metaphors. Like with hip hop, you kind of do. Like, you know what I mean? Like I used to love her. Like you say at the end, this is the, you know what I'm saying? So,
For anyone who may have not picked up at the end who Common was talking about, you know, that.
yeah, it's like this is. I realize that in putting these songs together, like you make those connections very clear and even explicit. And so yeah, that's gonna help with the live songs too. You know, I'm not just going from like some weird universe and then back to an old catalog song that's very much about me and my life. Yeah.
So then with this record too being clocking in at around like 39, 40 minutes, you find the brevity like really helped you to deliver on that and not get too either overabundant with it or just keeping things going?
Yeah, I mean, it's. I think it's daunting enough for someone to go, I'm gonna sit down and listen to this concept album. It's even more if they're like, and it's like 75 minutes or something like that. So yeah, like brevity was important for me with this. I wanted to. I even cared about calling it a short story about a war. I just don't want to like intimidate people with the whole idea. I want them to be able to feel like this is something approachable. Yeah.
So that in mind, with the approach of it, one thing that I found really cool is when you released it, it came with the tarot cards. I'll pull these up right now. So what was the idea about having it with the short story about war, and then like, do you had an interest in tarot cards prior to this, or is there a story behind the?
Not really tarot cards exactly, but like the album, like it came out of this image again, like this scenario, this story, and so I wanted to do more visual stuff than I usually do, and more like tactile stuff, you know? So, you know, definitely wanted to press up the vinyl and have the artwork be, you know, dope. And then something like this, I just talked to my creative designer, and he was like, creative director, and he was like, yeah, let's do these cards, you know, with some of the different themes on the album. They're like diametrically opposed themes, you know, and then some songs that kind of speak to those different themes on the other side with some images that he came up with. But yeah, I just wanted it to be a more visceral experience in general, this album. You know, tactile, visual, all that. Yeah.
And on this project too, you worked with Kay Trinata on it, who I believe in another interview you mentioned you linked up via Twitter. That's right. So how did that come about, like in between just like a series of tweets? And
Yeah. How did it work? How did it work? I think maybe I dropped him a line on Twitter congratulating him on something, maybe the Polaris Music Prize or something like that. And he hit me back and was like, yo, thanks, let's work. I was like, yeah, bet. Like, I think he's amazing. You know, really, really special in terms of the vibes that he can give people. It's like a very special vibe that people really love, like colorful, you know, vibrant, and yeah, and a dope young Haitian Canadian.
There you go. Because I know he first popped up on my radar when he did the record with Buddy. Yeah. And that was just so cool. And then, you know, and this, you know, and still dope, but it sounds, you know, just like so worldly different. So yeah.
Oh, he's actually amazing, you know, and especially given his age. Like I heard he'll just fly to Brazil. You know, he won't just be like, let me dig on YouTube Bossa Nova records. He'll be like, no, I'm gonna go to Brazil. I'm gonna go actually feel it, like feel the culture and feel where those sounds come from. So just like that maturity is amazing, like in a young guy, and that passion for music, like he's special. He's special.
Cool. Well, speaking of special, how was it doing the narrative work for Hip Hop Evolution?
Yo, super dope. Yeah, I really lucked out being a part of that. I know the director and the writer really well. They're Toronto dudes. I don't know if you ever got Pound Magazine. Maybe not. It's the best hip-hop magazine Canada's ever made. And the guy who was the editor-in-chief of that and founder of that magazine is the head writer. So he called me in for a meeting along with the director, Darby, that I knew from You Guys Didn't Get Much Music, but it's our MTV.
Funny thing about Much Music, we got it in the arcades here in like the 90s because for whatever reason it was like cheaper to have that than to have like MTV beamed into it. So we'd go and we'd, you know, be playing the Mortal Kombat, then look up and Much Music would be there. So we know our Much Music, yeah.
Yeah, so Darby, the director of Hip Hop Evolution, programmed the rap show on Much Music. So, you know, on the strength of their resumes, I sat down with them and they're like, this is what we want to do. Would you want to host it? I was like, yeah, obviously, like, how's that not going to be the best? And it was really, really cool. It's been really, really cool. Yeah, we're still working hard on on Hip Hop Evolution, making a couple more seasons.
Sweet. And then speaking of the hosting work, so this is just something because I'm endlessly fascinated by this guy. During your time on the Q with the CBC, you interviewed Norm Macdonald.
Yes.
What was that like?
Norm's the best. Norm's the best. Yeah, like he is. He's such a fascinating man. You know, so funny, so dedicated to his craft. But there's like a very endearing quality to him. There's like a sensitivity there, and a unique kind of intelligence. I mean, he's just obviously smart, witty guy, but yeah, I mean, very literary. Like loves. You can just tell in his jokes and stuff too. Like he writes with a precision that's just like really admirable. But yeah, he was the best. He was the best. Yeah, there's a couple times he made me laugh, and I could barely get back to the mic.
He has this transcendently funny thing about him where it just comes out and you feel it like in the soul.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. There's like always his jokes are funny, and then also just little things he'll say that are just, you know, just as funny as whatever the punchline is of his joke. Yeah, he's amazing.
Cool. So right now, you know, coming back now with this new record and with it being, you know, 5 years prior before this one, do you have immediate plans like working on something new or potentially in this sequel-heavy era of rap records doing, you know, perhaps TSOL Part 2 or?
Yeah, I never even like thought about that, but yeah, I'm already working on some new music. A lot of stuff, like when I started out working on this album, I was working on a lot of material. Some of it was definitely this project, and others was just stuff, you know? And so I feel like I already have a bank of stuff to start working on the next thing. And yeah, I'd love to do something that is, just different, you know? This was like dense and heavy and like really what I wanted to say and what I felt I had to give. But there's another vibe I really love to give people. And so I want to work towards that, yeah.
Sweet. So finally, the last time we spoke, which was for LA Weekly, I believe, in about 2015, and that was like right after you had gotten your master's. We talked about the differences in touring and going around, you know, having completed that. And the time since, congratulations on getting married and having a child. So has that changed much of the writing perspective on it and the touring levels?
Yeah, a little bit. The album came out in the fall, but I didn't get to do all the touring in the fall because that's when my daughter was born. So that's changed things a little bit, just like logistically. But I'm also thinking about, what will this mean as far as songwriting and stuff? I mean, new stories. But yeah, I mean, it's different writing about your life when you're a single person, you know. With family, it's like different. There's a kind of a responsibility to like keep family, keep it private, you know? So I'm still trying to figure out what to do about that. New frontiers, you know? Yeah.
So just curious then, like that in mind, has that made you like want to look back at the phrasing of any things you did in like previous records, or is it, you know, just, yeah?
I try not to think about it. I try not to think about it, but yeah, I never even thought I'd get to that point where I'm like regretting old lyrics or whatever. But yeah, that's probably a reality. Yeah.
Right now, it's a snapshot of what it is, you know, progressing towards the future. So
yeah, I think so. But also, when I started, like, I made my first album in 2005, and at that time, like, stuff didn't really last. You know what I mean? Especially like in the world of independent music. You know, you might be in a couple CD stores, but by the time you make your next thing, then that one's bumped behind, and then like it's not in print. Like, it's not in print. People can't even access it. So now we're in a different world where like your streaming page has all your albums just right there, like looking all the same. You know what I mean? So that was just a reality that I don't think anybody really prepared for. Yeah.
Especially when you consider, and I taught a music program for 7 years in Harlem, and during that stretch from like 2008 to 2015, it used to be, at first no one's spending money on music, you just download what you want, and then it became like sports teams, and it became kids could download artists' entire discographies, and the time it takes me to say this sentence, like it's wild, just how much is the permeance of it too.
Yeah, and for some reason people love starting at the beginning, and I'm like, don't start at the beginning. You know what I mean? That wasn't what it was before. You always had to start with the most recent one. That was the easiest one to get your hands on. It was harder to get your hands on the other stuff. So
Yeah, especially when it's like, it's the thing that, the popular record now, and then it oftentimes, like with JC's Reasonable Doubt, it would have to be a success now to get the stuff re-released. That can be appreciated, but that sort of hurdle as opposed to being like, oh, what'd you put on Dat Piff when you were in junior high? And the sound click, the even pre-SoundCloud, all those, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just funny. We never really prepared for that, but so I don't know. I might have to take some stuff down at a certain point, and just be like, yeah, hey, like I know some people really like these songs, but like I stay awake at night thinking about the fact that like people, might be listening to that first. Don't listen to it first, at least. Yeah.
Or just re-release it with like a disclaimer at the very beginning where you're like, stop, before you do this, Yeah, find out what happens on page 36, so.
Yeah, make sure you really like me before listening to this album type of thing. Yeah.
Well, once again, thanks so much for coming through. Looking very forward to the show tonight. And once again, congrats on a short story about war.
I appreciate it, and thanks for all the support, man. It's really cool. I appreciate it.